What if a single mark on your palm could reveal the secret to genius? Maya had always felt like creativity was a distant star she could only watch from afar, never quite able to reach. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, she envied the inventors and innovators whose names filled history books and tech magazines, yet she struggled with the nagging belief that she was destined for ordinary. But then, one rainy afternoon, while helping her grandmother sort through old family albums, Maya noticed a peculiar palm mark on her own hand, a strange swirl near her thumb that her grandmother's eyes lit up at instantly. That mark, her grandmother whispered, is shared by the greats, Elon Musk, Leonardo da Vinci, and others whose creativity changed the world. Skeptical but curious, Maya wondered if this tiny, almost invisible line could hold the key she'd been searching for. Was it possible that the secrets to genius were hidden in plain sight, etched into our very skin? The idea fascinated her enough to start a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about creativity, fate, and herself. But before that journey could begin, she needed to understand the story behind the mark, and what it really meant for her future. This story is not just about a line on a palm, it's about what happens when hope, belief, and relentless determination collide. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Maya, that thing was the dream of creating something that mattered, a dream buried under years of doubt but now flickering with new light. Her friends often told her to forget about myths and focus on real science, but Maya sensed there was more to the story. As she researched, she found countless references to this palm mark of genius scattered across biographies of famous innovators. Elon Musk, whose relentless drive transformed electric cars and space travel, reportedly had the same mark. The question wasn't just whether the mark was a coincidence or a superstition, it was whether Maya could harness whatever force it symbolized to finally break free from her own creative block. That night, under the soft glow of her desk lamp, Maya traced the swirl with her finger, wondering if it was fate or just a trick of genetics. She wasn't sure yet, but the possibility alone was enough to ignite something inside her. This was the beginning of a story that would take her through moments of crushing failure and soaring hope, through friendships tested and new alliances forged, all the while chasing the elusive spark of genius hidden in the lines of her palm. Could a simple mark really unlock a destiny? Or was it Maya's belief in herself that would make all the difference? The answer, she soon learned, was far more complicated, and far more inspiring, than she ever imagined. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Maya grew up in a quiet suburb of Columbus, Ohio, in a house filled with the hum of everyday life but often silent in ways that left her craving something more. Her parents, hardworking and practical, wanted stability and safety for their only daughter. They didn't quite understand her restless mind that was always spinning ideas and questions no one seemed to answer. From a young age, Maya was different. While other kids played outside or watched cartoons, she preferred tinkering with discarded gadgets or sketching inventions on scraps of paper. She was the kind of child who asked, "What if?" all the time. What if cars could fly? What if computers could think? But her curiosity wasn't always met with encouragement. Her father, a mechanic, believed that hard work with your hands was the path to a good life, but he thought Maya's dreams were flights of fancy, distractions from a practical future. Her mother, a schoolteacher, wanted Maya to focus on her studies and get into a solid college, something real and dependable. This tension between Maya's imagination and her parents' expectations shaped much of her early years. At school, Maya was quiet but sharp. She excelled in science and math, but struggled socially. Her classmates often found her too intense or strange, and that loneliness added to the feeling that she was different in ways no one else understood. The bullying she endured was subtle at first, whispers, exclusion, eye rolls, but it grew as she reached middle school. The very qualities that made her unique became the source of her isolation. Despite this, Maya found solace in one constant, her grandmother, Ruth. Ruth was a vibrant woman with stories that stretched across generations and a belief in the mysteries of the world. She often told Maya that creativity was a gift that sometimes came with burdens but always with hope. It was Ruth who first introduced Maya to the idea of palmistry, saying that the lines on one's hand could reveal hidden truths about a person's path. "You have a special mark," Ruth once said, tracing a faint swirl near Maya's thumb. "This mark belongs to the dreamers, the inventors, the ones who changed the world." Maya wasn't sure what to make of it, but the idea that her palm might hold a secret gave her comfort and a strange sense of destiny. Ruth's stories weren't just tales, they were lessons wrapped in mystery, encouraging Maya to believe in something beyond what was immediately visible. At home, the atmosphere was more complicated. Maya's parents meant well but often failed to see how deeply their daughter's creative spirit needed nurturing. Her father would sometimes shake his head when she spoke about her inventions or dreams of innovation, urging her to focus on real skills. Her mother, though loving, was exhausted by the daily grind and sometimes unintentionally added pressure by pushing Maya toward conventional success. These conflicting forces made Maya feel torn between the world she lived in and the world she wanted to create. As a teenager, Maya began to retreat further into herself. She found friends who shared her love of science fiction and art, but they were scattered and few. She spent long hours in the local library, devouring biographies of famous inventors and entrepreneurs. The story of Elon Musk fascinated her most, a man who seemed to bend reality with his vision, a genius who was rumored to have the same mysterious palm mark. Maya often wondered if there was something genetic or something magical, linking them. She dreamed of a future where she could be like Musk, fearless, innovative, unstoppable. But the path to that future was anything but clear. In high school, Maya faced a pivotal moment when a group project went horribly wrong. Her teammates ignored her ideas, labeling them too out there, and the resulting failure made her question whether her creativity was a blessing or a curse. She felt misunderstood and frustrated, yet she refused to give up. Somewhere deep inside, the words of her grandmother echoed, "You have a mark of genius." Maya clung to that hope like a lifeline. During this time, her relationship with her grandmother became even more important. Ruth would invite Maya over on weekends, teaching her to read palms, telling her stories of visionaries and mystics, blending science with spirituality. These moments were a refuge from the skepticism of the outside world. Ruth's unwavering belief in Maya's potential became a source of strength. Yet, the reality of Maya's emotional struggles remained. She wrestled with anxiety and self-doubt, haunted by the fear that her dreams were too big, that the world would never accept her. Despite this, she found small victories, winning a local science fair, receiving praise from a favorite teacher, and the rare moments when her inventions actually worked. Each success built her confidence, but also deepened the pressure she put on herself. College offered a new chance for Maya. She enrolled in a state university's engineering program, hoping to finally find peers who shared her passion. The transition was both exhilarating and daunting. The campus was larger, the competition fiercer, and the stakes higher. She struggled to fit in but also discovered clubs and groups where innovation thrived. Here, Maya learned that creativity wasn't just about ideas, it was about resilience, collaboration, and the courage to fail and try again. Her palm mark continued to fascinate her. She even jokingly compared it with those of classmates, but no one else seemed to share it. She wondered if it was rare, a secret symbol passed down to a select few. Yet the true meaning eluded her. One winter evening, after a long day of classes and failed experiments, Maya found herself alone in her dorm room, staring at her palm in the dim light. The swirl near her thumb seemed to pulse with a strange energy. Could it really be a sign of something greater? She didn't know. What she did know was that she wasn't ready to give up, not on herself, not on the possibility of something extraordinary. The story of Maya's early life is one of contrasts. The clash between dreams and doubts, between isolation and connection, between the mundane and the magical. It's a story of a girl who refused to be defined by the limits others set for her. As she stood at the edge of adulthood, Maya was poised to begin a journey that would test her beliefs, challenge her fears, and push her to discover what it truly meant to be a creative genius. The palm mark was only the beginning. Maya's second year of college was supposed to be the turning point, the year she would finally launch something original, something groundbreaking, the year she would prove that the mark on her palm wasn't just a coincidence or the wishful thinking of a girl clinging to a myth. But things didn't go as planned. The classes were harder, the expectations higher, and the competition fiercer. Everyone seemed to be chasing their own version of success, building apps, launching side projects, getting internships at companies Maya had only ever read about. She felt like she was always one step behind, like everyone else had already figured out a secret formula she couldn't quite decode. She kept telling herself the mark meant something, but self-doubt crept in like a slow, choking fog. It started with the little things. A software project she'd spent weeks building glitched during her presentation and earned her a flat C. A professor she admired dismissed her idea for an AI-assisted creativity engine as overly ambitious and conceptually unclear. Her roommate, an honors student with a growing social media following, scoffed when Maya mentioned her fascination with the palm mark again. "You think you're connected to Elon Musk because of a line on your hand?" She laughed, not cruelly, but with the kind of dismissiveness that cuts even deeper than cruelty. That night, Maya locked herself in the campus makerspace, a half-lit room cluttered with circuit boards, soldering irons, and outdated 3D printers. She sat at the corner desk, her head in her hands, trying to figure out where she was going wrong. She stared down at her palm, at the faint swirl near her thumb. Was it just skin? Just biology? Or was it some kind of symbol she'd been projecting her hopes onto because she couldn't face the idea of being ordinary? She remembered what her grandmother used to say, that genius wasn't just about raw ability, but about stubborn belief in the face of rejection. But belief alone wasn't helping her finish her code or solve the math problems stacked on her desk. For the first time in years, Maya wondered if she'd been deluding herself. Still, she pushed forward, because giving up felt worse than failing. She poured herself into her coursework and side projects, skipping parties, skipping sleep, trying to will herself into becoming the innovator she'd always dreamed of being. But her exhaustion showed. Her grades slipped. Her enthusiasm dulled. Her creativity, once a fire she couldn't contain, started to sputter like a candle in the wind. The final blow came during a pitch competition hosted by the university's Entrepreneurship Center. Maya had spent weeks preparing a presentation for her concept, a software suite that helped users unlock creative thinking using a mix of neuroscience-based prompts and AI-generated visualization tools. It was personal, inspired by her own struggles with creative block, and she believed it had the potential to help students, artists, and even engineers think in new ways. She'd rehearsed it 100 times. She'd stayed up 3 nights straight refining her prototype. And then, on the stage, her laptop froze. Right at the moment when she was supposed to show the live demo, the screen went black. She panicked, trying to ad-lib, trying to explain her vision without the visuals, but her voice trembled and her words came out disjointed. The judges looked politely unimpressed. One of them even checked their phone during her Q&A. She walked off the stage to polite applause that felt more like a sympathy pat on the back. In the hallway afterward, she overheard a group of other students talking about the competition. One of them mentioned her pitch, laughing, "The Palm Girl. Yeah, she lost me at unlocking creativity with AI dreams." Maya kept walking, swallowing the tears that threatened to surface. That night, back in her dorm, she called her grandmother. Ruth's voice was warm but weary. "Sometimes," Ruth said softly, "the world needs time to catch up to what you already see." But Maya wasn't sure she believed that anymore. She didn't tell her grandmother how much the laughter had hurt or how humiliated she felt. She just listened quietly, hoping that something in Ruth's calm would transfer through the phone into her own soul. She thought about dropping out. She thought about transferring. She thought about quitting tech altogether. Maybe she could become a teacher, or go into marketing, or do something that didn't require so much of her spirit. But every time she considered it, she saw that mark again, that damn swirl, and she remembered what it symbolized, what she had always believed it meant. There was still a flicker inside her, buried deep, that whispered, "Not yet." In an effort to regain control, Maya joined a student-run tech incubator on campus. It was a competitive program, designed to simulate the startup world. The team she was placed on was working on an app that helped people track their learning goals. The project was dull, uninspired, but Maya decided to treat it like a chance to rebuild. Her mentor in the program, a grad student named Darren, seemed impressed by her technical skills and gave her more creative freedom than the others. They worked closely, often late into the night, and for the first time in months, Maya felt like she was contributing to something that mattered. Then one morning, she walked into the incubator space and saw Darren pitching their project, her features, her designs, her code, as his own. Her name wasn't on the slides. She wasn't even mentioned. When she confronted him, he shrugged. "I didn't think you'd care," he said. "You've been so out of it lately. I thought you were losing interest." Maya reported him to the program director, but nothing came of it. Darren was well-connected, charming, and the director hinted that it might be best not to cause drama. The injustice burned. She wanted to scream, to quit, to run. But instead, she walked away quietly, her dignity frayed but not broken. That night, she stood on the roof of her dorm building, the wind cold on her face, and stared out over the dark campus. She pulled out her phone and looked at pictures of Elon Musk, read quotes from his interviews, watched clips of him being ridiculed early in his career. She imagined him standing in her shoes, laughed at, dismissed, sabotaged. And she remembered that he kept going. Not because of a palm mark, but because he believed in something larger than himself. Maybe the mark didn't grant genius. Maybe it was just a reminder. A symbol. A challenge. A tiny whisper in the noise of doubt saying, "You're not done yet." Maya went back to the makerspace the next day. She didn't know what she was going to build, but she knew one thing for certain. No one was going to define her path for her. Not professors. Not classmates. Not even failure. If the world didn't believe in her, she would believe in herself twice as hard. The mark on her palm was still there, still mysterious, but it no longer felt like a promise. It felt like a responsibility. And she wasn't ready to walk away from it just yet. The semester after the betrayal, Maya stopped trying to fit in. She realized something had to change, not just in how she worked, but in how she saw herself. No longer interested in seeking approval, she threw herself into solo work, sketching wild ideas in her notebook, diving into obscure research, and even coding without a clear goal, just to feel the rhythm of building again. The pain of being dismissed and overlooked was still there, but it began to transform into something different, determination. She kept mostly to herself, except for her weekly calls with Ruth, who had started sounding friendlier, her voice softer with each call. "What matters isn't how many people see your light right now," Ruth told her one evening, "it's that you keep it burning long enough for the right ones to notice." Maya thought about that constantly. She began working on a personal project, something she hadn't told anyone about. She called it Imagine Engine, a creativity simulator that generated visual prompts, scenarios, and metaphors based on neural patterns and user inputs. The idea wasn't fully formed, but it combined all the things she loved, cognitive science, and unlocking the mind. She worked quietly, often alone in the back of the engineering library with headphones on, the hum of her laptop and the scratch of her pencil filling the long hours. It wasn't flashy, but it made her feel alive again. Then, one afternoon, a flyer caught her eye in the cafeteria. It was for an off-campus event, a weekend innovation retreat hosted by a Bay Area startup accelerator that had been touring college campuses, scouting unknown talent. The event promised access to mentors, investors, and a potential spot in their summer founder program. Maya stared at the flyer for a long time, then folded it and slipped it into her backpack. She wasn't sure if she had the courage to apply. The rejection still stung from the last time she put herself out there. But something about the name of the retreat, Spark Lab, called to her. That night, she sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop glowing on her legs, and filled out the application. In the section asking what made her different, she hesitated. Then she wrote, "I believe creativity can be taught, not just inspired. I'm building a system that trains people to think differently, not just more efficiently." The idea was born from struggle, rejection, and a single mark on my palm that reminded me not to give up. She didn't expect anything to come of it. But 2 weeks later, an email arrived in her inbox: "Congratulations. You've been selected to attend SparkLab's Columbus campus weekend. Bring your vision." Her heart raced as she read it. For the first time in months, she felt something spark inside her again. Maybe this was the beginning of a new chapter. The retreat was held in a sleek co-working space downtown, filled with glass walls, modular furniture, and the kind of startup energy that buzzed like static in the air. Maya arrived early, wearing jeans, sneakers, and a plain hoodie, trying not to feel underdressed. Other students filed in, many in blazers, carrying printed pitch decks and custom mock-ups. Maya only had her laptop, her half-finished code, and a sketchbook. She found a quiet table by the window, took a deep breath, and waited. The first few sessions were typical: talks on product-market fit, networking games, advice on how to craft a perfect elevator pitch. Maya listened, took notes, but kept to herself. During a break, she stepped outside to clear her head, wondering again if she was out of her depth. That's when she met Jake. He was leaning against the railing, eating a granola bar with the kind of careless ease that made him seem like he belonged anywhere. He noticed her hesitance and offered a quick grin. "You here for Spark Lab or just raiding their snacks?" he joked. She smiled shyly. "Both, maybe." He introduced himself as a coder from Michigan State, with a background in game theory and an interest in weird tech that makes people feel things. They started talking, casually at first, but then something clicked. When Maya mentioned her project, Jake's eyes lit up. "You're building a creativity engine? That's insane. And genius. I've been playing with narrative AI stuff, emotion-based story generation. We should talk." For the rest of the day, they bounced ideas back and forth. Jake was fast, clever, and open-minded. He didn't flinch when Maya brought up the palm mark, didn't laugh or scoff, he leaned in, intrigued. "Symbols matter," he said. "We all need something to believe in when logic runs out. Whatever keeps you moving forward, that's real." By the end of the weekend, they had paired up for a challenge competition where attendees had 48 hours to build and pitch a product prototype. Jake insisted they submit Imagine Engine. Maya hesitated, unsure if it was polished enough. But he was relentless, encouraging her, helping her polish the UI, and even writing back-end scripts that improved her visualization engine. They barely slept, fueled by caffeine, ambition, and a weird sense that maybe this was what genius actually looked like: not perfection, but persistence. On the final day, they presented to a panel of judges. Maya's voice shook at first, but as she clicked through their slides, showing how users could input a mood or theme and receive unique creative prompts shaped by AI patterns, she found her rhythm. She ended the pitch by saying, "Creativity isn't a lightning bolt. It's a practice. And we believe anyone can train their mind to think like a genius." The judges asked tough questions, but they nodded thoughtfully. A few smiled. And when the results were announced, Maya and Jake didn't win first place, but they were invited to apply to SparkLab's Summer Accelerator in San Francisco. Maya stared at the email in shock. She had gone from feeling like a ghost on her own campus to receiving an invitation from one of the most respected startup networks in the country. Jake turned to her, laughing. "Looks like that mark on your palm might be onto something." For the first time in months, she laughed too, not a polite laugh, but one that burst from her chest, real and wild. Something had shifted. She wasn't fixed, and she wasn't finished, but for once, she didn't feel lost. That night, as she rode the bus back to campus, city lights streaking past the windows, she pulled out her phone and took a picture of her hand. The mark was still there, unchanged, silent. But it didn't feel like a mystery anymore. It felt like a reminder. A spark. A thread woven into the skin that told her, yes, this is the way. And for the first time, she didn't just believe she might become something great, she knew it had already begun. The email came on a Tuesday morning, just as Maya was packing her things to leave for class. She read it twice, her breath catching somewhere in her throat. We're sorry to inform you that you were not selected for the SparkLab Summer Accelerator at this time. While we were impressed by your team's project, we've chosen to move forward with other applicants. We encourage you to apply again in the future. The words hit harder than she expected. The excitement she'd carried since the retreat, the confidence that had begun to blossom inside her, collapsed like a fragile structure buckling under pressure. She dropped her phone on the bed and stared at the ceiling, frozen. It felt personal. Maya had replayed the weekend over and over in her mind, how the judges nodded, how one of them even asked for her contact afterward. She thought they saw something in her. But now it felt like another dead end. Another moment where she almost made it, but not quite. She sent a quick text to Jake, who responded 5 minutes later with a shrugging emoji and, guess it wasn't meant to be. Their loss. We'll build it our way. That should have comforted her. It didn't. Something about Jake's tone had changed in the days since the retreat. He'd stopped texting as often, took longer to reply, and always seemed to be in the middle of something. Maya tried to dismiss the growing unease in her chest. They were just busy, right? Finals were coming up. Everyone was stressed. Still, doubt crept in, curling in the pit of her stomach like a slow poison. She buried herself in her code, expanding Imagine Engine, pushing it in directions she hadn't even considered during the retreat. She began integrating a voice response feature, using neural sentiment detection to adjust creative prompts in real time. Her dorm room became a cave of wires, energy drinks, and blinking monitors. She forgot to reply to messages. She missed a few classes. But she was building something. She had to believe that meant something. Then, one afternoon, while browsing through a tech newsletter she subscribed to, Maya saw something that made her blood go cold. The headline read, "New startup taps into AI to fuel creative thinking, meet DreamSpark." She clicked the link. The article described a small team of college students launching a product aimed at enhancing creativity through machine learning and narrative triggers. The product sounded suspiciously familiar. Then she saw the photo. Jake. Smiling. Standing in front of a laptop with a mock-up that looked eerily like her original UI for Imagine Engine. Her breath left her body like a punch to the chest. He hadn't even changed the interface. The name was different, sure, but the core functions, the language, the purpose, it was her work. Their work. No. Her work. The article mentioned how Jake had refined the idea after a brainstorming session with a peer, and then built the prototype himself over winter break. She felt sick. The betrayal hit her in waves, first confusion, then disbelief, and finally a raw, searing anger. She immediately texted him, "What is DreamSpark?" He didn't reply. She waited. Hours passed. She emailed. Still no answer. By the next morning, his social media was suddenly locked down. It was like he'd vanished. Or like he had known this was coming and had planned his exit in advance. Maya's hands shook as she reopened the article. She read every word again, just to confirm she wasn't imagining it. The pain wasn't just about the idea being stolen. It was about trust. She had let him in. She had told him about the mark, about Ruth, about her deepest insecurities. He had smiled through it all, nodded, encouraged her, only to walk away with the very thing they had built together. No, that she had built. Alone in her dorm room, she collapsed onto the floor, her back against the bed, her fists clenched. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry. She just sat there, hollowed out. The temptation to quit, to delete the project files and be done with it all, was overwhelming. Why keep trying? Why keep building when the people around her only seemed to take and twist and leave? The voice of her inner critic grew louder than ever, saying things she hadn't heard since her darkest days in high school. You're not special. That mark means nothing. You were stupid to believe. She could have stayed there, stuck in that place, if not for a text from her grandmother. No context. No introduction. Just one line, "You are more than what they take from you." It broke something open. Maya burst into tears, silent and shaking, her phone pressed to her chest. The grief was real, but underneath it was something stronger. Rage. Clarity. Resolve. She stood up, wiped her face, and turned her computer back on. She opened her GitHub. She looked through her notes. She found the original commits, the version history, the dates, all of it. Her code was time-stamped. Documented. Tracked. She had proof. But even more than that, she had her idea. And she wasn't done. The next morning, she filed a copyright claim on the visual and functional components of ImagineEngine. It wasn't a full lawsuit, she didn't have the money or the lawyer, but it was enough to put a formal timestamp on her work. Then she began reaching out to every contact she had, not out of vengeance, but with a new urgency. She wasn't going to let someone else's betrayal define the legacy of her vision. She emailed the Spark Lab mentor who had asked for her slides. She sent him everything. Her notes, her designs, the comparison to DreamSpark. She didn't accuse Jake by name, just laid out the facts. Within 48 hours, she got a response. The mentor thanked her for the clarity. He admitted that DreamSpark had looked strangely familiar, and he promised to escalate the issue to the internal review board. Whether anything came of it didn't matter as much to Maya as the act itself. She was no longer silent. She had chosen to fight. In the weeks that followed, she rebuilt ImagineEngine from the ground up, incorporating new features and adding layers of personalization that made it even more distinct from Jake's version. She renamed it internally, Project Mnemosyne, after the Greek goddess of memory and creativity. The new name felt like armor. Like rebirth. She also started documenting everything more carefully, each feature, each inspiration, each breakthrough. This time, she wouldn't just be a girl with an idea. She would be the architect of something undeniable. Finals came and went in a blur. Maya passed her classes, barely, but she didn't care. She had rediscovered her fire. The mark on her palm remained unchanged, still quiet, still faint, but now it felt like a scar of purpose instead of mystery. A reminder that she had survived. And would continue to. One night, weeks after the fallout, Maya stood in front of her dorm mirror. She held her palm up to the light, turning it slightly, examining the line that had started it all. For the first time, she didn't ask what it meant. She didn't need it to mean anything magical anymore. It was hers. And that was enough. She turned back to her laptop, the glow of the screen catching the curve of her cheek. She opened her prototype, ran the engine, and spoke softly into the mic. Let's begin. The screen responded with a blooming canvas of colors, metaphors, and sounds, something new, something alive. It had been a brutal season. But there was still hope. And Maya had work to do. The summer after the betrayal wasn't quiet, it was transformative. Maya didn't go home, even though her mother begged her to take a break, to reset, to just come breathe for a while. But Maya wasn't ready to slow down. Not when everything was finally clear. She found a sublet off campus, a tiny studio apartment with cracked blinds and a leaky faucet, and she made it her war room. There was no air conditioning, and her only furniture was a mattress on the floor and a desk she pulled from a dumpster. But none of that mattered. She was building. Project Mnemosyne had become more than a response to betrayal, it was her declaration of intent. She pored over psychology journals, machine learning forums, and cognitive behavioral therapy research, finding ways to deepen the engine's potential. She didn't want it to just generate prompts, she wanted it to learn from the user's habits and moods, to identify patterns in how people thought, imagined, and even struggled to dream. She imagined a future where a writer with creative block, an anxious student, or even someone recovering from trauma could open her tool and feel understood, empowered, sparked. She worked 14-hour days, sometimes more. She lost track of time. Her diet consisted mostly of frozen burritos and coffee. And in the midst of all of it, the news came, her grandmother Ruth had been hospitalized. Maya's mother called, her voice brittle and distant, and Maya knew this was it. She left the city that night, taking the midnight train across Ohio, watching as the lights of Columbus disappeared behind her. She arrived at the hospital the next morning, and the sight of Ruth in the hospital bed, so small, so still, hit Maya harder than she expected. Ruth opened her eyes slowly, a faint smile rising when she saw Maya. "There's my girl," she whispered. Maya took her hand and sat beside her for hours, telling her everything, about Spark Lab, about Jake, about Mnemosyne. Ruth listened, her grip soft but steady, her eyes bright with pride even through the fog of medication. At one point, she reached over and turned Maya's hand palm up. She traced the mark again with her thin, cool finger. "Do you still see it?" Ruth asked. Maya nodded. "But I think it's just skin." Ruth smiled. "Maybe it is. Maybe it's also a map." Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor of the hospital room, typing on her laptop, adding a new module to Mnemosyne, one that captured the tone and cadence of a user's voice and converted it into a creative baseline, allowing the system to tune its responses in a more human way. She called it the Ruth layer. When Ruth passed 2 days later, Maya didn't cry right away. Grief landed slowly, like a fog that built up until she couldn't breathe. But even through the pain, she kept working. It wasn't about distraction, it was about honoring something. Ruth had seen her before anyone else did. And Maya wasn't about to let that belief die. She returned to campus determined to launch. She began putting together a private beta. She sent out emails to art students, creative writing majors, even psychology PhD candidates, offering early access to Mnemosyne. The response was slow at first. Most people didn't get it. But a few did. And those few became a trickle of feedback that Maya used to iterate rapidly. She added new interfaces, designed a mobile version, and even created a guided experience for first-time users. For the first time, Mnemosyne felt less like a pet project and more like a movement. One of her users, a student struggling with PTSD, sent her a message that stopped her cold. "Your tool helped me write a story about something I never thought I could talk about. Thank you for giving me back a piece of my voice." Maya stared at the screen for a long time, then saved the message into a folder called Why. That same week, a visiting professor from the MIT Media Lab came to give a talk on emotion in artificial intelligence. Maya attended, sitting in the front row with her laptop closed, her mind buzzing. After the talk, she approached him with a question, and by the end of their conversation, she had shown him Mnemosyne. He was impressed. Deeply. He offered to connect her with someone on his team. That connection led to a Zoom meeting. That meeting led to an invitation to present her project at a digital storytelling summit hosted in Boston later that summer. The summit was small but respected, a breeding ground for emerging thinkers and tinkerers in the cross-section of technology and imagination. Maya prepared for weeks. She redesigned the UX. She added security layers. She worked with a graphic design student she'd met in a feedback group to polish the branding. She even created a short video trailer showcasing what Mnemosyne could do, ending with the line, what if creativity wasn't a gift, but a skill you could unlock? On the morning of the summit, she stood outside the venue, clutching her laptop bag, sweat gathering behind her neck. This time, she was alone. No Jake. No team. Just her and an idea that had clawed its way through betrayal, grief, and exhaustion. When she stepped onto the stage, the lights were hot and blinding. But she didn't flinch. She spoke clearly. Calmly. She told the story, not of the code, not of the tech specs, but of the need. The ache. The reason she built it. She spoke about losing her confidence, and then her grandmother, and how the tool became a way to rebuild not just her voice, but the voices of others. When she finished, the room was silent for a beat. Then applause. Not thunderous. Not standing. But real. Honest. Afterward, two panelists approached her, one from a creative therapy institute, the other from a wearable tech company exploring emotion recognition. Both asked for meetings. Both said, "You're onto something." That night in her hotel room, Maya sat with her laptop in her lap, looking out over the city. She opened the app. The mark on her palm still caught the light when she turned her hand. She didn't need it to tell her anything anymore. She knew who she was. And for the first time, the girl who had once doubted everything, the girl who once stood on the edge of her dorm roof wondering if any of it mattered, felt certain. Not that she would succeed, not that everything would be easy, but certain that she had found her path. The path she would keep walking. No matter what came next. Maya never imagined her first investor pitch would happen in a converted warehouse with string lights and beanbags, but that's exactly where she found herself 3 weeks after the Boston summit. The space smelled like coffee and ambition, filled with young founders talking too fast and typing even faster. She had been invited to a micro-accelerator event in Brooklyn, thanks to one of the contacts she met at the summit. It wasn't Y Combinator or Sequoia, but it was something. Something real. Something serious. The kind of place where a project could grow wings or get buried. Maya sat at the edge of the room, her backpack at her feet, holding a flash drive and trying to keep her hands from shaking. She had pitched before, but this was different. This was the first time the people across the table could say yes and actually change her life. She wore black jeans and a blue button-up, trying to strike a balance between founder and student, professionalism and authenticity. She didn't have a deck made by a marketing team or a pitch coached by a VC whisperer. What she had was mnemosiny. And a story. And scars. Her name was called. She stood, walked to the table, and saw 3 investors seated in front of her. 2 men, 1 woman. The woman glanced up first. "You're the creativity AI," she said, flipping through a tablet. "We read your submission. Different angle." Maya nodded. "Yes, but I'm not trying to automate creativity. I'm trying to train it. Strengthen it. Like a muscle." The older man leaned forward. "And people actually want that?" Maya met his eyes. "I have 70 early testers who've used mnemosiny to finish novels, launch campaigns, or reconnect with things they thought they lost, writing, painting, even dreaming. One user said it helped her process childhood trauma through storytelling. This isn't just for productivity. It's for healing. For unlocking the part of the mind that gets buried under noise." She clicked the remote and launched her demo. Mnemosiny's interface appeared, sleek and minimal. A voice asked, "How do you feel today?" Maya replied softly into the mic, anxious but determined. The system responded, "Understood. Let's work with a theme of breakthrough. Here are 3 narrative sparklines based on your energy." Colorful arcs bloomed across the screen, each representing a potential story shape, rising tension, a shift, a resolution. "It's like a mirror," Maya explained, "but one that speaks the language of metaphor, mood, and momentum. It doesn't just analyze, it inspires." The woman nodded. The younger man asked about revenue models, competition, scalability. Maya answered clearly. Subscriptions. Tiered content. Integration with education and therapy platforms. Yes, there were creativity tools out there, but none that adapted to emotional cadence in real time. When her time ran out, she closed with one line, "I'm not just selling a product. I'm offering people the key back into themselves." She left the table not knowing what would happen. She walked outside, breathing in the New York air, loud and chaotic and buzzing with life. She didn't feel perfect. But she felt enough. That evening, at a closing mixer, one of the investors, the woman, found her near the snack table. She held out a business card. "I want in," she said. "Not a huge check, but enough to build your team, run your first marketing test, get this into more hands." Maya stared at the card. Her heart thumped. "Really?" The woman smiled. "You've got vision. And grit. That's rare. Keep the soul. Don't let money strip it out." The deal came together quickly. $50,000 for 10% equity. Not life-changing money in Silicon Valley terms, but to Maya, it felt like someone had handed her a flame after years of trying to spark fire with her bare hands. She called her mom that night and told her everything. Her mom cried. Maya almost did too. Then she wired a small piece of it back home, to help with funeral costs, to repair the porch Ruth used to sit on, to remind herself what this was really about. She returned to Ohio a founder. She registered Mnemosyne LLC. She built a real website, opened a business account, hired a freelance developer to help clean up her code. The first person she brought onto her team was Sarah, a psychology grad student she'd met during testing, who had sent her long, detailed feedback and one sentence Maya never forgot: "This tool made me realize that I still matter." Maya made her head of research. The next was Dom, a quietly brilliant back-end developer she found through a local tech Slack. He wasn't flashy, but his code was clean and reliable, and he didn't question the mission. The small team worked virtually, day and night, bouncing between Google Docs, Zoom calls, and frantic Slack threads. They rebuilt the engine. Created tiered modules for educators, therapists, and creatives. Partnered with a trauma-informed nonprofit for pilot programs. And when they were ready, they soft-launched. Maya posted the link on Product Hunt, Reddit, and a few curated mailing lists. She didn't expect much. But within 48 hours, they had 2,000 signups. Within a week, they had over 10,000. Emails flooded in, testimonies, feature requests, stories of breakthroughs. A retired teacher who used it to write her first poem in 20 years. A teenager battling depression who said the tool gave him a voice he didn't know he had. A veteran using it in therapy. Maya read every single message. She saved the best ones. She replied to as many as she could. She kept building. And through it all, she kept thinking about the mark on her palm. It hadn't changed. It was still small, curved, and mostly invisible to anyone but her. But now it felt less like a secret and more like a source. Of fire. Of memory. Of momentum. Investors began reaching out. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. Journalists called. One article in Fast Company called her the empathy engineer. She laughed when she saw that. But deep down, she liked it. It felt right. Not because she was brilliant, or magical, or marked by fate, but because she had stayed. Through doubt. Through theft. Through grief. She had stayed. One evening, months into launch, Maya sat in the middle of her empty apartment, eating cold noodles and staring at a wall covered in sticky notes. Each note had a name, a quote, or a milestone. At the center, circled 3 times, was a phrase written in her grandmother's handwriting: "Keep going. Keep believing. Keep building." She whispered it aloud. Then opened her laptop. Another version was ready to deploy. The next feature. The next step. She clicked upload, and just like that, the work continued. The world didn't pause for genius. It didn't wait for the perfect idea. It moved. And Maya had learned how to move with it. It happened the day before Maya's first live keynote, the kind of speaking engagement she used to dream about. She was set to appear at a virtual innovation summit broadcast to an audience of over 100,000 people across universities, tech hubs, and mental health organizations. The topic was rewiring the creative brain, and mnemosyne was positioned as the centerpiece of the event. Maya had prepared relentlessly, mock interviews, practice runs, even breathing exercises her therapist taught her to regulate anxiety. But just when she finally started to feel ready, the email arrived. Subject line, thought you should know. No name, no intro, just an attachment and a short message, recognize this? Maya stared at the screen. Her heart ticked faster as she opened the file. It was a pitch deck. Jake's name at the top. Dream Spark. But this was different. The deck contained private notes, slides, diagrams, even phrasing lifted directly from her original mnemosyne draft from 6 months ago, including an internal user quote she'd never shared publicly. Her hands trembled. She cross-referenced it with her old Google Docs and GitHub archives. The language was nearly identical. Somehow, Jake had accessed her files. Not just what they'd built together at Spark Lab, he had kept watching after he disappeared, quietly pulling from her updated drafts, stolen ideas repackaged with glossy graphics and his name on the masthead. Maya felt nauseous. The breach wasn't just betrayal, it was invasion. He hadn't just taken what they once shared. He had been shadowing her growth like a parasite, extracting value and spinning his own version in parallel. And the kicker? The email was forwarded from a VC assistant who had seen both projects. Jake had just pitched DreamSpark to a major firm, and one of their analysts had recognized the similarities. Maya felt the weight of the moment press down on her. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everything she stood for. The thousands of users who trusted mnemosyne. The team she'd built. The story she'd fought to write. She needed to act. Fast. She forwarded the email to her legal advisor. A woman named Marcy she'd hired on retainer after her first funding round. Marcy responded within the hour. This is serious. We're initiating a cease and desist. I'll handle the firm. Maya nodded, even though no one was there to see her. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, uncertain. Then, instinctively, she opened a blank document and began to write, not legal language, not a takedown. A letter. To Jake. She didn't plan to send it, but the words needed somewhere to go. You could have asked. You could have built your own. I would have respected that. But you followed me in the dark, waited for me to do the hard work, and then tried to stand in my light. You didn't steal an idea. You stole trust. And the worst part? You probably still think you're the genius. But real genius has empathy. Vision. Integrity. Yours is hollow. She stared at it. Deleted it. Then took a breath. That night, hours before her keynote, she couldn't sleep. She sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, the glow of her computer the only light in the room. She opened the mnemosyne prototype and whispered into the mic, I feel betrayed, but I won't be broken. The system responded, then let's build from that. Here are 3 themes, reclamation. Triumph. Voice. She smiled faintly. Even now, her own creation was reminding her of who she was. Morning came. The summit went live. And Maya appeared on screen, wearing a dark blazer over her favorite hoodie, hair tied back, face calm but fierce. She started with a question, what if everything you created could be taken from you, but your voice still remained? The chat lit up instantly. She told the full story, not of Jake, not by name, but of the pattern. The erasure. The theft. And the decision to keep building anyway. They'll call you sensitive. Paranoid. Dramatic. But trust your blueprint. There is power in being copied, it means you were first. You were bold. And no one can steal the way you see the world. She clicked to her demo. Walked through real user stories. Played clips of anonymous feedback. And then, in the most daring move of her career, she shared a new feature, VoicePrint Legacy. It was a module that allowed users to record their creative insights in real time, emotions, stories, memories, and store them as encrypted sequences tied to their account. It created a time-stamped digital trail of invention, impossible to duplicate. A safety net. A signal flare. A truth record. Your imagination deserves protection, Maya said. Let's stop making creators prove they were first. Let's give them tools to be seen. When she finished, the virtual applause was overwhelming. Messages flooded the live chat. Tweets exploded. She was trending before she could even log out. But the true climax came 2 hours later. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She answered. Maya Jennings, a male voice said. I'm with Hyperion Ventures. You don't know me, but I just watched your summit talk. I need to say something. Maya blinked, unsure. Okay. That guy who pitched DreamSpark. We were 10 minutes from signing a term sheet. But after your talk, after the documents we've now reviewed, yeah, no deal. I just wanted you to hear it directly. You've earned our attention. Maya exhaled slowly. Thank you. We want to talk, the man added. Soon. There's something real here. Something we don't want to miss. She ended the call in a daze. For a moment, the silence of her apartment wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She walked to the window, the city lights flickering outside, her hand unconsciously touching her palm. The mark was there. Still faint. Still hers. Still enough. It no longer held mystery. It held memory. Of the girl who once thought she was invisible. Of the woman now leading an idea that couldn't be stolen. Not truly. Because it lived in her breath. In her voice. In every word she had chosen not to give up on. The pain wasn't erased. But it had become part of the architecture. And with every passing day, Maya wasn't just building an app. She was building a world where no dreamer would have to fight alone. The email from Jake came at 3:12 a.m., and Maya almost didn't see it. It landed in her other inbox, buried under spam and mailing lists she never unsubscribed from. But something about the subject line caught her eye, "You win." She clicked it open, pulse steady, fingers clenched. The body of the message was only a few lines. I guess I underestimated you. You built something real. I don't know what I was chasing, recognition, maybe, but it doesn't matter anymore. They've pulled out. I'm shutting it down. Congrats, Maya. Seriously. No apology. No ownership. No remorse. Just resignation wrapped in the thinnest layer of civility. Maya stared at the screen for a long time, expression unreadable. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. A few months ago, she might have cried or shouted or thrown something across the room. Now, she just closed the browser. Not out of apathy, but evolution. He no longer had a seat in her story. Mnemosyne was growing faster than she could have imagined. The Hyperion meeting had turned into 3 more meetings, which led to a 6-figure investment and a joint research initiative with a top neuroscience lab. Maya was suddenly in rooms she used to read about, strategy sessions with mental health foundations, fireside chats with top VCs, beta program rollouts with major educational platforms. And yet, the spotlight didn't change her. If anything, it deepened her focus. She wasn't interested in being a founder for the sake of ego. She didn't crave magazine covers or TED Talks. She wanted to make something that lasted. Something that mattered. Her team expanded, 8 people now, each hand-picked for their heart as much as their skill. Every Friday, they held reflection calls, where no metrics were discussed. Just emotions. Moments. Lessons. What did Mnemosyne help someone uncover this week? Maya would ask. And the answers would come. A mother wrote a letter to her estranged daughter after 5 years of silence. A 14-year-old wrote a comic about surviving bullying, and shared it in class. A former addict used our prompts to write his recovery story and started mentoring others. These weren't just data points. They were the reasons the team stayed up late, pushed through bugs, and handled stress without resentment. They were the soul of the mission. Maya had begun speaking more publicly, not because she wanted attention, but because she wanted to shift the conversation around invention and voice. She talked about what it meant to be a young woman building in a space often reserved for men in hoodies with VC pedigrees. She talked about the quiet trauma of being told your ideas are cute or a nice side project, instead of being seen as scalable, viable, fundable. She talked about the long shadow of imposter syndrome and how it still whispered to her late at night, even now. It never fully goes away, she told a crowd at a Stanford panel. But I've learned that you can walk forward with doubt in your pocket. You just don't let it drive. Afterward, a teenage girl approached her, eyes wide. I thought I was the only one who felt like that, she said. Maya smiled. You're not. Not even close. That was the moment she knew Mnemosyne needed to evolve again, not just as a product, but as a movement. She started outlining a curriculum, a creative empowerment toolkit for high schools, especially in underfunded districts where art programs had been cut. The idea was simple: teach students how to use Mnemosyne not just to write stories, but to rewrite the stories they told themselves about who they were and what they were capable of. The pilot launched quietly in a Cleveland school where Ruth had once taught. Maya visited the classroom on the first day, watching as students put on headphones, answered questions about their moods, and watched prompts bloom on screen in colors and shapes and sentences that felt like magic. One girl raised her hand and said, "Is this thing psychic or something?" Everyone laughed. But Maya knew what the girl meant. Mnemosyne wasn't psychic. It was present. It listened. It reflected. Something most people were starving for. Something most systems didn't offer. The success of the pilot spread fast. More schools joined. Maya built a separate track just for teenagers, working closely with educators and counselors to make sure it was safe, adaptive, trauma-informed. And somewhere in the middle of it all, she realized she was no longer running from her past. She was standing inside her purpose. It wasn't perfect. The platform crashed sometimes. Feedback loops failed. Mental fatigue crept in. But she no longer saw setbacks as signs she wasn't enough. They were just part of building something true. Then, one night, she got a message from a user named Silver Sky. No bio. Just a note. I'm 63. I haven't created anything in 30 years. Mnemosyne helped me remember who I used to be. I'm painting again. For the first time since my wife died. Thank you. Maya read it twice. Then she broke. Not in pain. In awe. She sat in silence, tears falling, not because she was overwhelmed, but because she finally understood the full scope of what she'd done. This wasn't about algorithms or product features. This was about resurrection. Restoration. She thought back to the beginning, the mark on her palm, the retreat, the betrayal, the long nights coding alone in a dorm room no one remembers now. All of it had led here. To this quiet moment of truth. She whispered Ruth's name. She placed her palm flat on her desk, traced the arc of the line with one finger. It didn't need to glow. It had already lit the path. The room was silent except for the soft hum of Maya's laptop as it rendered the latest user interaction heatmap, but she wasn't looking at data. Her eyes were fixed on the live stream panel to the right of the screen, where a new message blinked in: "My daughter hasn't spoken in almost a year. She wrote something with your program today. A real paragraph. Thank you." That was the third message like it this week. And Maya had stopped trying to describe how they made her feel because words always fell short. It was something deeper, something like reverence. She leaned back in her chair, rubbed her eyes, and thought about what it all meant. Mnemosyne had started as a defense mechanism, a way to build herself back after betrayal, but it had become a bridge. A map. A mirror for thousands of strangers who were all trying to find the words they didn't know they still had. Her team had grown to 15 now, spread across 5 time zones, each with their own reason for being here. Every Monday morning, they still opened with user stories instead of KPIs. It had become a ritual. A grounding. Even their newest hire, a UX designer from Seattle named Lila, said, "It's the only meeting I look forward to all week." And that meant more to Maya than any graph ever could. But the momentum brought new pressure too. Investors were starting to circle more aggressively. Some wanted Maya to pivot toward enterprise applications, licensing the AI to marketing firms, integrating into CRMs, diluting the soul of what Mnemosyne had become. "You could make millions," one of them said on a call. "Maybe billions. People don't need stories. They need conversions." Maya didn't flinch. "We're not optimizing people. We're reminding them they're already enough." The investor smirked. "That's poetic. But poetry doesn't scale." She ended the call early. That night, she sat alone in her apartment, city lights filtering through the window, laptop closed, phone off, just her and the quiet. She could feel the old voices returning, the ones that whispered she was naive, too emotional, not built for the pressure of real leadership. She knew those voices. They used to live in her bones. But something had shifted. She stood up, walked to her mirror, and stared at her reflection until she recognized herself, not the founder, not the brand, not the rising star. Just Maya. Ruth's granddaughter. The girl who used to trace imaginary maps into her skin, trying to find her place in the world. She pressed her palm to the glass. "Still here," she whispered. "Still building. Still believing." A few days later, she flew to LA to give a talk at a cross-disciplinary summit called Voices Unleashed. It wasn't a tech conference. It was a gathering of poets, educators, artists, mental health professionals, people who didn't speak in code or valuation terms. People who, like her, believed that the right story at the right moment could save a life. Maya's talk was scheduled at sunset. The room was bathed in amber light, floor-to-ceiling windows catching the sky as it shifted from gold to lavender. She stepped up to the microphone and looked out at the crowd. Not hundreds of faces. Just dozens. But every one of them was listening. And this time, she didn't start with slides or market statistics. She started with a question. Have you ever forgotten who you are? The silence was immediate and full. She continued. I have. I forgot when I was told my ideas were too soft. I forgot when someone I trusted stole from me. I forgot when I watched my grandmother die and thought the light inside me went with her. But every time I almost let go, I found a word. A sentence. A spark. And I built something from it. Something that reminded me, and others, that our stories are sacred. She took out her phone, opened Mnemosyne, and showed the audience how it worked. Not through stats, but through feeling. She ran a live demo using the emotion, grief. The system offered a story seed titled, When the Wind Carries Her Name. She read the first few lines aloud. People in the room were crying. So was she. When she finished, there was no applause at first. Just quiet breathing. And then, as if in unison, the room stood. A standing ovation, not of noise but of gratitude. Later, backstage, a woman approached her. Mid-40s, wearing a badge from a non-profit for trauma recovery. "You have no idea what you've created," she said. Maya nodded. "Sometimes I don't think I'm supposed to." The woman smiled gently. "Good. That means you built it for the right reasons." Maya flew home changed. Not because the talk was a success, but because she had told the truth again, and the truth had landed. She thought of Ruth on that porch, staring at the sky, saying, "Some of us are meant to light fires that others don't even know they need." Maya had lit that fire. Not for applause. But for warmth. The next morning, she opened her laptop and found a new message in the feedback folder. No subject line. Just a short sentence. "My son hasn't spoken to me in 2 years. He sent me a poem today. He said your tool helped him find the words." Maya pressed her hand to her heart. Not out of sentimentality, but out of awe. Because somehow, in building something to heal herself, she'd help strangers heal each other. And maybe that was the point all along. Not to be famous. Not to be first. But to be the spark. The hand reaching out. The light that breaks in when everything else goes dark. It wasn't the awards or the headlines or even the growing list of schools and clinics adopting mnemosyne that made Maya feel like she'd finally crossed some invisible threshold. It was the moment she stepped into the small auditorium at her old high school, the same stage where she once read a shaky poem to 12 uninterested classmates, and now stood facing a packed room of students who had all used her creation to write something real. They called it Story Day. Teachers had cleared schedules, counselors organized the seating, and every student had been asked to submit a piece of writing they created using mnemosyne. The air buzzed with nervous anticipation, pages fluttering in trembling hands, but Maya could see the pride tucked underneath. She sat in the front row as one by one, students came up and read their pieces, short stories, personal essays, spoken word poems. Some were funny, others raw, a few barely made it out of the students' mouths before emotion cracked their voices. But they read. They stood. They were heard. A boy named Tyler read a piece titled, "What I Wish My Dad Knew," and after he finished, he stepped down from the stage and was embraced by a man Maya recognized instantly, his father, who had come late, but stayed for the rest of the readings. A girl named Anaya read a piece called, "Dreams Are Louder at Night," and the room held its breath as she described her fear of not being enough, then her discovery that her words were the one place she never had to pretend. Maya clutched the edge of her chair. These were not users. These were not metrics. These were lives. Voices. Proof that stories could be architecture, that truth could be a tool. At the end of the program, the principal walked up to the microphone and introduced Maya as an alumna, inventor, and storyteller. It was the first time she'd been called that by someone who had known her before she became those things. She stepped up, heart steady. "I want to say something simple," she began. "Your story is not something you earn. It's not something that waits for you to be better or more successful or more healed. It's something you already have. You're already the writer. You've always been." The auditorium was quiet. One student in the back raised a hand. "How do you know if your story matters?" Maya smiled, not with pity, but with recognition. "Because you're still here," she said. "And that means your story's not over yet." Afterward, she stayed for hours. Students lined up to talk, to share what they'd written, to ask questions about how to keep creating. She hugged them, encouraged them, told them about the times she wanted to quit but didn't. When she finally left the building, the sky was dusky and gold, and she stood for a moment looking up at the brick facade, remembering who she had been the last time she walked those halls. Lost. Quiet. Convinced her voice didn't count. And now here she was, carrying voices forward. The next week, she met with her team to plan the next phase of Mnemosyne's journey. They were exploring partnership proposals from major education networks, therapy associations, and even a tech company known more for profit than purpose. But Maya was careful. She didn't want Mnemosyne to be swallowed up by a system that didn't understand its soul. "We're not a shortcut," she told the team. "We're not here to replace teachers or therapists. We're here to support them. To unlock something people forgot they had." Dom nodded. "We need to make that part of our brand DNA. Non-negotiable." Lila added, "We're not just a product. We're a philosophy." They created a manifesto, a statement of purpose that every new partner had to agree to before integration. Maya insisted that user data remain private and sacred. She refused licensing deals that sought to commercialize creativity in manipulative ways. She turned down a lucrative offer from a marketing firm that wanted to use Mnemosyne to create emotional resonance scripts for ad campaigns. "We don't fake humanity," she told them. "We amplify it." But the most surprising call came from the university she had dropped out of. The same advisor who once told her she was overthinking things reached out, asking if she would consider returning to speak. Not as a student. As a guest lecturer. Maybe even, faculty. Maya took a long breath before replying. "Let me think about it." She wasn't sure she needed the validation anymore. But the idea of coming full circle wasn't lost on her. That weekend, she went to visit her mother. The house was quiet, the garden overgrown but still alive. They sat on the porch with tea, the same porch where Ruth once held court like a queen without a crown. Her mother looked at her and said, "Your grandmother would be so proud of you." Maya smiled softly. "I hope so." "She would," her mother said. "Not because you built something big. But because you remembered where you came from." Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a bound booklet. "These are some of the stories from the school program. I thought you might want to read them." Her mother flipped through the pages, eyes misty. "You gave them what Ruth gave you." That night, as Maya lay in bed, she looked at her palm again. The mark had not faded, but it no longer felt like a mystery. It was a reminder that the past leaves fingerprints on the present. That pain can become purpose. That a story, once silenced, can come roaring back with a voice so loud it echoes through others. She whispered a line to herself, one she had written long ago but never forgotten: "The truest mark of genius isn't brilliance, it's bravery." And as she closed her eyes, she felt at peace. Not because the world had finally seen her, but because she had finally seen herself. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The morning light poured through Maya's window like a soft spotlight, the kind that doesn't ask for attention but demands reflection. She sat on the edge of her bed, holding a worn notebook in her hands, the same one she'd used to sketch her earliest thoughts for Mnemosyne. Its pages were frayed, some of the ink smudged by tears or coffee, or both. She flipped through the sketches, the brainstorms, the half-formed algorithms that would eventually become the voice engine, and paused on a single line she had circled again and again in red ink: "Let the story find them." That line had anchored her through months of uncertainty, through funding droughts and stolen ideas, through the nights when she felt more like a fraud than a founder. And now, here she was, no longer chasing a dream but living inside it. Yet something had shifted. The last few weeks had been filled with success, real, undeniable success. Mnemosyne had just crossed 1 million active users. They were launching a dedicated channel for survivors of trauma, in partnership with multiple mental health nonprofits. The tool was being translated into 5 languages. A publisher even approached Maya about a book deal, not about the company, but about her journey. She had done everything she once thought was impossible. And yet, there was a strange ache in her chest. A weight that wasn't sadness, but something more complicated. Something like arrival. She realized that for so long, her life had been about building, about proving, about fighting for the right to be heard. And now that she had that, the question shifted: what does it mean to lead when the storm is over? What does it mean to be seen when no one is doubting you anymore? She got dressed, threw on her favorite hoodie and jacket, and walked outside. The city was just waking up, streets glazed with the amber glow of sunrise, coffee shops humming to life. She didn't have a meeting scheduled until noon, which meant she had time, real time, to wander. Her feet took her to the park where she used to sit on bad days and record voice notes to herself. She found the same bench, sat down, pulled out her phone, and opened Mnemosiny. She whispered into it. Today I feel unsure. Not lost, not broken. Just unsure of what comes after proving I belong. The screen blinked, then displayed, let's explore what happens when the mountain becomes a mirror. That hit her harder than she expected. She tapped into the prompt. It said, you've spent so long climbing, you forgot what it's like to rest. To look down not in fear, but in awe. What would you say to the girl who first dreamed of this place? Write to her. Maya stared at the blinking cursor. And then she began. Dear me, you won't believe where you end up. There will be nights you're sure you've failed, days where someone takes from you and makes you question your worth. But you'll keep going. You'll build something not everyone understands, but the right people will. And more than that, you'll help others find their voices too. You'll cry from joy, from exhaustion, from awe. You'll speak in rooms where your silence used to echo. You'll love yourself again. You'll forgive the past. You'll realize you were never too soft, you were just deep. And deep is what the world needed. You are not the shadow. You are the fire. When she finished, she let the words hang there. Then she saved the entry and closed the app. Her heart felt lighter. Back at her office, a bright, cozy co-working space her team had recently moved into, she arrived to find a surprise waiting. Her lead developer, Dom, had organized a gratitude wall. A massive board now stood in the entryway, covered in handwritten notes from users, teachers, therapists, parents, even other developers who had contributed open-source support. I found my voice. This tool saved my daughter's life. I remembered I'm still a writer. Because of Mnemosiny, I told my truth in court. Maya stepped back, her hand to her mouth. You okay? Dom asked. She nodded, voice cracking. Yeah. Just that. He clapped a hand on her shoulder. This is why we keep showing up. That afternoon, during their weekly check-in, Maya shared something different. I think we're ready to teach others how to build their own Mnemosiny, she said. Not the tech exactly, but the philosophy. The process. The idea that you don't need to be a genius to be worth listening to. You just need the courage to speak. Lila leaned forward. Like a fellowship program? Exactly, Maya said. For young people, underrepresented voices, caregivers, anyone who wants to turn experience into something expressive. Something healing. Dom grinned. You're creating ripple effects. Maya smiled back. We all are. And that night, alone again in her apartment, she lit a candle and pulled out Ruth's old journal, the one her grandmother used to write little phrases in. Inside, next to a pressed flower and a folded photo, was a line Maya had almost forgotten: it's not the story that saves us. It's the telling. Maya closed the journal and whispered into the air, I'm still telling. The city was quiet outside, but inside her chest, something eternal stirred, the sound of a voice not silenced, not stolen, but sovereign. Her own. Maya's journey had been one of growth and triumph, but as the company expanded, so did the complexities she hadn't anticipated. The day started like any other, with her juggling calls from partners and reviewing user feedback, but then an urgent message popped up on her phone. A major glitch had caused Mnemosiny to generate inappropriate and harmful content for some users. The team scrambled to understand what went wrong. The AI, designed to nurture creativity and healing, had instead produced stories that triggered trauma instead of soothing it. Maya felt a pit open in her stomach. How could this have happened? She called an emergency meeting. Faces appeared on her screen, tense and worried. Dom explained that a recent update to the model's language filter had inadvertently loosened constraints in some emotional response algorithms. The balance they had worked so hard to maintain was fragile. We've been testing in controlled environments, but the diversity of user experiences is vast, Dom said. Maya swallowed her frustration and guilt. We have to fix this now, but we also need to communicate transparently. Our users trust us. Over the next 48 hours, the team worked around the clock, pulling in outside experts in trauma therapy and AI ethics to help redesign the content filters. Meanwhile, Maya crafted a heartfelt message to the Mnemosyne community. She posted it on all platforms. We are deeply sorry for the hurt caused by recent errors. Our mission is to help, not harm. We are actively working to correct this and improve our system with your safety and well-being as our top priority. The response was mixed. Some users were forgiving, others furious, and a few questioned whether Mnemosyne was reliable at all. Maya felt the weight of their doubt like a storm pressing down. She remembered Ruth's words about resilience and held on to them fiercely. Days blurred into nights. One evening, Maya found herself wandering the city streets to clear her mind. She passed a small bookstore and paused at the window, watching a woman read aloud to children sitting cross-legged on the floor. The warmth in that scene reminded her why she had started this journey, to connect people with their stories, to find light even in darkness. She resolved to be more cautious but not to retreat. Mnemosyne needed to evolve, not disappear. The technical fixes rolled out slowly but steadily. The team added layers of human review, partnered with mental health professionals for ongoing guidance, and developed a system where users could flag content immediately. Maya also initiated a weekly open forum where users could voice concerns directly to the development team. These forums were raw and emotional, revealing stories of pain and healing, fear and hope. Maya listened intently, sometimes moved to tears. She knew these were the moments that defined their work. One evening during a forum, a young woman named Emily shared how Mnemosyne had helped her write a letter to her estranged mother. But after the glitch, she hesitated to open the app again. Maya responded with honesty, admitting their mistakes and promising continued improvement. Emily's gratitude was palpable when she later sent a private message, "Thank you for not giving up on us." The crisis stretched Maya's leadership and personal limits. She questioned if the dream was sustainable. But in the quiet hours before dawn, she often thought about Ruth's palm mark, the symbol that had sparked this entire journey. The mark wasn't about perfection, it was about creativity born through struggle and imperfection. This was just another chapter in that story. With renewed focus, Maya guided the team through the technical and emotional storm. The company culture deepened, centered more than ever on empathy and humility. Mnemosyne was no longer just a tool but a living, breathing community of imperfect, beautiful human stories. And through it all, Maya learned that true leadership wasn't about never failing but about facing failure with courage and grace. The weeks following the crisis marked a turning point for Maya and the Mnemosyne team. What had started as a near disaster transformed into a moment of profound growth and unexpected opportunity. The transparent communication and vulnerability Maya had shown earned the company a surprising amount of goodwill. Users who had initially doubted Mnemosyne's safety returned, many sharing stories of personal breakthroughs facilitated by the app. Maya found herself overwhelmed, not by success, but by the depth of responsibility that now rested on her shoulders. One morning, as she sipped coffee in the sunlit kitchen of her apartment, her phone buzzed with a calendar invite titled Mnemosyne Global Summit. The invite came from an international nonprofit that specialized in trauma recovery and creative therapy, inviting her to speak and collaborate on scaling the platform worldwide. The possibility was exhilarating but daunting. Maya realized Mnemosyne was no longer just a startup, it was becoming a movement. The summit was scheduled for 3 months later in Berlin, a city with its own rich history of resilience and reinvention. Maya spent days preparing her presentation, focusing on the mission's heart, helping people reclaim their voices through storytelling. She practiced talking about the struggles, the glitches, and the triumphs, knowing that authenticity was her greatest strength. When she landed in Berlin, the energy was electric. The summit was filled with therapists, educators, survivors, and technologists from around the world. All passionate about using creativity to heal. Maya's keynote speech was met with standing ovations and tears. Afterward, a group of experts approached her with proposals to integrate Mnemosyne into refugee support programs and international schools. Back home, the team was eager but wary. Expansion brought new challenges, navigating different languages, cultures, and ethical considerations. Maya insisted on building local partnerships and customizing Mnemosyne's interface to respect diverse experiences. One afternoon, Lila shared an idea that sparked excitement. What if we create a mentorship program where survivors who have used Mnemosyne to heal can guide new users? It could build community and provide peer support. The concept quickly gained traction. Maya envisioned a network where stories didn't just heal individuals but connected people across continents. As the mentorship pilot launched, Maya received a message from a young man in Syria named Samir, who had lost much to war but found solace in writing through Mnemosyne. His letter spoke of hope and resilience, reminding Maya why the work mattered on a global scale. The mentorship program flourished, stories blossomed, and Mnemosyne's impact deepened. However, with growth came new pressures. Investors began pushing for profitability and rapid scaling, sometimes clashing with Maya's ethical priorities. She faced tough board meetings where she had to defend Mnemosyne's soul against profit-driven agendas. At one particularly tense meeting, Maya stood firm. We cannot sacrifice trust for growth. If we lose that, we lose everything. Her conviction inspired some but frustrated others. The internal struggle was exhausting. To recharge, Maya retreated one weekend to a cabin by the lake, the same place she had visited as a child with Ruth. Surrounded by the quiet woods and shimmering water, she journaled late into the night, reflecting on how far she'd come. The experience rekindled her sense of purpose and reminded her of the simple joy in creation. Returning to the office, Maya called a company-wide meeting. She shared her reflections and announced a new initiative focused on sustainable growth, mental health support for the team, and prioritizing mission over margins. The staff responded with enthusiasm, feeling seen and valued. Mnemosyne was no longer just a product, it was a community committed to healing and honesty. One evening, Maya received an unexpected call from her old college advisor, who congratulated her on her global impact and invited her to lead a new interdisciplinary program combining technology, storytelling, and mental health at the university. The offer felt like the final piece of a circle closing, an invitation to teach what she had learned from her lived experience. Maya accepted, eager to mentor a new generation of changemakers. As the chapter of expansion closed, Maya sat quietly in her apartment, looking at her palm under the soft glow of the lamp. The mark was no longer a mysterious symbol but a testament, a palm print left by life's trials, creativity's spark, and the courage to build something that mattered. She whispered, "This is only the beginning." Success, Maya quickly realized, came at a price she hadn't fully anticipated. The thrill of expanding Mnemosyne globally, the invitations to speak at conferences, the growing community of users. All of it was exhilarating, yet beneath the surface, a quiet tension gnawed at her. The relentless pace demanded more hours, more meetings, more decisions that chipped away at her time and energy. Sleep became a luxury, meals often grabbed on the go, and weekends disappeared into work. Her relationships, too, bore the strain. Calls with her mother became shorter, visits less frequent. Friends dropped off the radar as she vanished into emails and deadlines. Even the journal she once poured her heart into sat neglected on a shelf. One evening, after a grueling day packed with back-to-back meetings, Maya found herself alone in the office late into the night. The empty space echoed with the hum of computers and the distant city sounds outside. She sat back, exhausted, and noticed her reflection in the darkened window, tired eyes staring back, surrounded by the faint lines of stress. Doubt crept in. Was this the life she had imagined? Was this the cost worth paying? The next day, Maya barely made it through the morning stand-up before her voice cracked during a presentation. Dom noticed immediately and pulled her aside. "You need a break," he said gently but firmly. "You're burning out." Maya nodded, grateful for his honesty but reluctant to admit it herself. She had always been her own toughest critic, pushing through exhaustion as if grit alone could solve anything. That weekend, Maya forced herself to disconnect. She left her phone at home and drove to a nearby nature reserve, the scent of pine and earth grounding her in a way screens never could. She walked the trails slowly, the crunch of leaves underfoot a rhythm she hadn't heard in months. At a quiet clearing, she sat on a bench and allowed the silence to wash over her. Memories surfaced. Long conversations with Ruth under the stars, the early days of mnemosiny sketched on napkins, the first time a user sent a thank you message. Maya realized she had been so focused on moving forward that she'd forgotten to pause and breathe. She thought about the women she'd met during mnemosiny's growth, survivors, creatives, warriors who balanced hardship with hope. They had taught her that strength wasn't just endurance, but knowing when to rest and ask for help. Returning home, Maya decided to make changes. She announced a new company policy encouraging work-life balance and mental health days. She scheduled regular check-ins with herself, including therapy sessions she had previously neglected. Slowly, she began rebuilding connections with family and friends. One afternoon, her mother surprised her with a visit. They sat together over tea, the conversation flowing with warmth and laughter. Maya shared her struggles openly, and her mother listened without judgment. It was a healing moment that reminded Maya how love was both refuge and fuel. At work, Maya also faced difficult conversations with investors who questioned her focus on balance over rapid growth. "The market rewards speed and scale," one said bluntly. "You risk losing momentum." Maya stood firm. "I'd rather grow slower and sustainably than lose the trust of our community or our own well-being." Her conviction won respect but also created tension that she had to navigate carefully. In the midst of this, a new project emerged, a collaboration with a non-profit focused on veterans' mental health. Maya met with veterans who used mnemosiny to process trauma through storytelling. Their resilience and vulnerability inspired her deeply. One veteran, Jake, shared how writing his story had saved him from isolation and despair. "Your tool gave me a voice when I thought I'd lost it forever," he said. Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that while success could be exhausting, it was also profoundly meaningful when it touched lives in ways no metric could measure. That night, as she journaled, Maya reflected on the paradox of leadership, the weight of responsibility balanced by the power of impact. She wrote, "To lead is to carry others, but also to care for yourself, so you don't break under the weight." Her palm mark, once a symbol of mystery and potential, now felt like a promise, to herself and to those who counted on her, that creativity, courage, and compassion must live together. The journey was far from over, but Maya understood that the truest genius wasn't just about invention or success, it was about resilience and heart. And with that understanding, she was ready to face whatever came next. Maya's journey had been shaped by many influences, but none more profoundly than Ruth, her grandmother. Ruth's stories, wisdom, and that distinctive palm mark had sparked the fire that led Maya to create mnemosiny. As the company grew and challenges multiplied, Maya often found herself returning to Ruth's legacy, not just for comfort, but for guidance. One chilly autumn morning, Maya received a package in the mail, a simple wooden box tied with a leather strap. Inside was a collection of Ruth's old letters, carefully preserved by her mother, with a note, "For when you need her most." Maya sat down and began reading, discovering a side of Ruth she'd never known, a woman who had fought societal expectations, battled personal loss, and yet remained fiercely creative and kind. One letter described Ruth's early dreams of becoming a writer, dreams she had set aside to raise a family and care for others. Maya realized Ruth's sacrifice mirrored her own struggles, and that legacy of putting love and purpose before personal ambition was a powerful inheritance. The letters were full of encouragement, reminders to stay true to oneself and to honor the messy, imperfect path of creation. Maya felt tears prick her eyes as she read Ruth's words. Creativity is not a straight line, it's a winding river that carves its own path. Trust where it leads. Inspired, Maya decided to create a new Mnemosyne feature called Legacy Letters, encouraging users to write to the people who inspired them or to their future selves. The feature quickly became popular, sparking thousands of heartfelt messages that deepened the community's connection. One day, while visiting a local community center to meet Mnemosyne users, Maya met a young woman named Hannah. Hannah was a refugee who had lost her family but found strength in writing her story through Mnemosyne. When Maya shared the Legacy Letters idea, Hannah lit up. "I want to write to my mother, who taught me courage," she said softly. Maya helped her get started, feeling the power of stories bridging past and present, pain and hope. Meanwhile, Maya's role as a mentor expanded. She was invited to speak at universities and innovation hubs, sharing not just the technical success of Mnemosyne but the human story behind it. Students sought her out for advice, hungry for guidance on balancing ambition with authenticity. One day, a graduate student named Leo approached her with a proposal to study the psychological effects of storytelling on trauma recovery using Mnemosyne's data, an idea Maya immediately embraced. Their collaboration led to new insights and improvements in the app's design, emphasizing personalized support and cultural sensitivity. As Mnemosyne grew more sophisticated, Maya remained grounded by Ruth's teachings and the memory of that palm mark, symbols of creativity born through struggle and nurtured by love. In quiet moments, Maya would close her eyes and imagine Ruth's voice, urging her forward. But mentoring also forced Maya to confront her own limits. She struggled with saying no, wanting to help every person and project that sought her attention. Dom reminded her gently, "You can't pour from an empty cup." This truth, once difficult to accept, became a cornerstone of Maya's leadership philosophy. She established mentorship circles within the company, empowering team members to support each other and spread the culture of care. One evening, after a long day of meetings and mentorship sessions, Maya sat alone in her office, reflecting on how far she had come. She pulled out a photo of Ruth, worn and smiling, and whispered, "Thank you for lighting the way." Maya realized that the legacy Ruth had passed down was not just about creative genius or resilience but about the courage to love deeply, to lead with empathy, and to trust the unfolding story. That night, Maya wrote her own letter for Legacy Letters, addressed to Ruth. "You taught me that the greatest stories are those written with heart and courage. I hope to live up to your legacy every day." As she saved the letter, she felt a profound peace. The journey was ongoing, filled with uncertainty and challenge, but anchored by the love and wisdom of those who had come before. Maya knew now that her own story was part of a larger tapestry, a continuum of creativity and connection stretching beyond time. And with that realization, she was ready to pass the torch, confident that the flame of hope and courage would continue to burn bright. Maya knew that growth wasn't just about scaling technology but also about breaking down the barriers that kept people from accessing their own stories. As Mnemosyne's reach expanded globally, she confronted a new and urgent challenge, ensuring the platform was truly inclusive. Early feedback revealed that many potential users felt intimidated by the digital interface or disconnected because the app wasn't fully adapted to diverse cultural backgrounds. Maya realized that the promise of creative healing could only be fulfilled if everyone, regardless of their circumstances, could participate. She convened a special task force within Mnemosyne, gathering diverse voices from within the company and partnering with outside community leaders and accessibility experts. The mission was clear: remove barriers, amplify marginalized voices, and make the tool a safe space for all. One breakthrough came when they discovered that for many non-native English speakers, the language of creativity wasn't limited to words alone. Visual storytelling, music, and movement were just as powerful for healing and expression. Maya championed the development of new features that allowed users to create multisensory narratives, combining images, sounds, and even simple interactive elements. The design team worked tirelessly to create intuitive interfaces that didn't require tech expertise. Maya also prioritized offline access. In rural areas with unreliable internet, users could download modules and sync their progress later. She saw firsthand how this change transformed lives when a community center in Appalachia reported dozens of new users who had never engaged with mental health tools before. But inclusion wasn't just about technology. Maya and her team developed culturally sensitive content guidelines, ensuring Mnemosyne respected traditions and trauma contexts unique to different groups. They hired cultural consultants from indigenous communities, refugees, and people with disabilities to help shape the platform's evolution. Maya's leadership style shifted to become even more collaborative and humble. She listened more than she spoke, understanding that breaking barriers required dismantling her own assumptions and biases. One of the most powerful moments came during a virtual town hall with users from around the world. A young indigenous artist from Canada named Ayana shared her experience of using Mnemosyne to reconnect with her heritage and heal generational trauma. "This platform has given me a voice when I felt invisible," she said. Maya felt tears well up as the chat flooded with messages of support and gratitude. Stories like Ayana's reminded Maya why breaking barriers was not a task but a calling. Yet, the journey was not without resistance. Some stakeholders questioned the cost and complexity of customization and cultural adaptation. "Shouldn't we focus on the biggest markets first?" one investor challenged. Maya responded firmly, "Innovation without inclusion isn't innovation at all." Her stance strengthened the company's identity as a mission-driven organization, even as it complicated negotiations for funding. Amid these challenges, Maya herself grew stronger. She sought out mentorship from leaders in social justice and accessibility, expanding her understanding and empathy. She encouraged Mnemosyne's staff to undergo cultural competency training and created safe spaces for difficult conversations about privilege and power. This internal work mirrored the platform's external mission. The more they embraced diversity and inclusion, the richer and more meaningful Mnemosyne became. One evening, as Maya prepared for a global conference on digital inclusion, she received a call from an old friend, Sarah, a schoolteacher in Detroit who had been following Mnemosyne's progress. Sarah shared stories of students using the app to express feelings they couldn't put into words before. "One of my kids, Marcus, wrote a story about his dad leaving and found the courage to talk about it for the first time," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. Maya realized that breaking barriers wasn't just about features or policies, it was about creating a space where people could reclaim their voices and feel seen. That night, she drafted a speech that ended with a powerful line: "When we break down walls to creativity, we build bridges to healing." The conference was a milestone. Maya's presentation highlighted Mnemosyne's journey toward true inclusivity and called on the tech industry to prioritize humanity over speed and profit. The standing ovation she received felt less like personal praise and more like a collective commitment to change. As Mnemosyne entered a new phase, Maya remained vigilant against complacency. She knew that breaking barriers was ongoing work. One that required constant listening, learning, and humility. She often revisited Ruth's palm mark, a symbol of creativity forged through struggle and connection, reminding herself that every step forward was built on the courage to face discomfort and embrace the unknown. The chapter closed with a quiet moment in her office, where Maya pinned a photo of Ayana's artwork on the wall alongside quotes from users around the world. This tapestry of stories was a living testament to the power of breaking barriers and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Just as Mnemosyne seemed to be entering a new era of growth and inclusivity, Maya faced an unexpected challenge that threatened everything she had built. It started subtly, with a handful of users reporting glitches, moments when their stories disappeared or became corrupted. At first, the tech team treated it as minor bugs, but soon the reports multiplied and grew more severe. Entire narratives were vanishing, memories lost in digital limbo. For many users, these stories were sacred, the very essence of their healing journeys. When the news reached the public, the response was swift and severe. Social media exploded with anger and fear. Headlines questioned Mnemosyne's reliability and safety. Maya's inbox flooded with messages from devastated users pleading for answers. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her more heavily than ever before. She called an emergency meeting with the engineering team, desperate to understand the root cause. It turned out to be a complex issue related to a recent update designed to enhance privacy protections. A feature meant to safeguard user data had inadvertently created conflicts in the app storage system. Fixing it would require a complete rollback and weeks of testing, time the company didn't have. The board demanded transparency but also results, pressuring Maya for a quick fix that could stabilize the situation without losing user trust. Maya knew that honesty was the only path forward. She drafted a public statement acknowledging the problem, apologizing sincerely, and promising rapid action. The response was mixed. Some users appreciated the openness, others remained skeptical. Media outlets scrutinized the company's response, and competitors seized the opportunity to question Mnemosyne's credibility. Internally, morale plummeted. The team, once energized by their mission, now felt defeated and exhausted. Maya struggled to keep spirits high while managing her own self-doubt. Was she capable of leading through such a crisis? One evening, Maya found herself alone in the office late, scrolling through user messages. A note from a woman named Clara caught her attention. Clara wrote about how Mnemosyne had helped her cope with grief after losing her husband, how the loss of her story now felt like losing him all over again. The message shook Maya to her core. It was a reminder that beyond data and code were real people whose lives were intertwined with the platform. Determined to make things right, Maya rallied the team with renewed purpose. She established daily crisis meetings, transparent updates, and direct communication channels with key users to gather feedback. The engineers worked around the clock to develop a patch, while the customer service team handled the growing influx of support requests. Maya herself took to social media and virtual forums, engaging honestly and empathetically with the community. She shared the human side of the crisis, the long hours, the sleepless nights, the commitment to fixing the problem. Slowly, trust began to rebuild. Users expressed gratitude for the company's transparency and dedication. Some even shared new stories of hope and resilience, inspired by the way Mnemosyne was weathering the storm. The crisis also revealed areas where the company's infrastructure needed strengthening. Maya seized the moment to advocate for increased investment in security, data integrity, and backup systems. The board agreed, recognizing that safeguarding user stories was paramount to Mnemosyne's mission. Through this ordeal, Maya learned invaluable lessons about leadership in times of crisis, the importance of humility, clear communication, and unwavering commitment to the people served. She reflected on Ruth's legacy again, the courage to face hardship without losing sight of purpose. As the technical issues resolved and the app stabilized, Mnemosyne emerged stronger and more resilient. Maya organized a virtual event called Stories Reclaimed, celebrating users who had rebuilt their narratives despite setbacks. The event was filled with powerful testimonies, laughter, tears, and a collective sense of healing. In the months that followed, Maya's leadership through the crisis became a case study in ethical tech management. She was invited to panels and interviews to share her experience, emphasizing that technology was only as good as the human values it upheld. The chapter closed with Maya standing in front of a packed auditorium, sharing one final thought: in every challenge, there lies an opportunity, to learn, to grow, and to deepen the bonds that connect us. This is the true creative genius behind Mnemosyne. After the storm of the technical crisis, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. The challenges had tested her leadership and the resilience of Mnemosyne, but they had also opened doors she hadn't imagined. With the platform stable and the community stronger than ever, Maya began to look outward, dreaming of new horizons beyond personal storytelling. She envisioned Mnemosyne evolving into a global ecosystem for creativity, healing, and connection, a place where art, science, and culture could intersect in transformative ways. Early conversations with Dom and the leadership team led to the launch of an ambitious initiative, the Mnemosyne Cultural Exchange, a program designed to bridge creative communities across countries and backgrounds. The idea was to create virtual residencies where artists, writers, musicians, and storytellers could collaborate, learn from one another, and share their work with diverse audiences. Maya saw this as a way to amplify voices that were often marginalized and to inspire innovation through cultural dialogue. The first exchange participants were a diverse group. An indigenous poet from New Zealand, a graffiti artist from Brazil, a classical musician from Germany, and a young digital storyteller from Kenya. Through Mnemosyne, they shared their stories and creative processes, exchanged feedback, and even co-created hybrid projects that blended their unique traditions and modern technology. Maya was amazed by the depth of connection and creativity that emerged, transcending language and geography. She attended virtual workshops and performances, feeling a sense of awe and gratitude. Mnemosyne's platform was no longer just a tool for personal healing, it was a vibrant global stage. At the same time, Maya pursued partnerships with universities and research institutions to explore the intersection of creativity and neuroscience. She was fascinated by studies showing how storytelling could rewire the brain and foster emotional resilience. These collaborations led to new app features that incorporated biofeedback, mindfulness prompts, and tailored creative exercises designed to boost mental health. Mnemosyne was evolving into a holistic platform that honored the science of healing as much as the art. The media took notice. Articles celebrated Mnemosyne as a groundbreaking fusion of technology, culture, and psychology. Invitations poured in for Maya to speak at international forums about the future of creativity and well-being. Despite the spotlight, Maya stayed grounded by her team and her community, remembering that the true heart of Mnemosyne was the people whose stories made the platform alive. One of her proudest moments came when a documentary filmmaker reached out to tell the story of Mnemosyne and its users. The film featured personal journeys of transformation, from veterans overcoming PTSD to refugees reclaiming their identities to children discovering their voices. Watching the documentary's premiere, Maya felt a deep sense of fulfillment and humility. The faces on the screen were proof that technology, when wielded with care and purpose, could change lives in profound ways. However, New Horizons also brought new challenges. As Mnemosyne grew, Maya grappled with maintaining the company's mission amidst pressures from investors and commercial interests. Some pushed for monetization strategies that clashed with her vision of accessibility and inclusion. Maya found herself negotiating fiercely, protecting the platform's integrity while securing resources needed for innovation. These moments tested her resolve and diplomacy, but she remained steadfast. She believed that the value of Mnemosyne was measured not just in profits but in its ability to foster empathy, creativity, and healing worldwide. On a personal level, Maya's relationships deepened and evolved. She reconnected with her mother, who had become an active supporter of Mnemosyne's initiatives. Their bond grew stronger through shared conversations about legacy and purpose. Maya also began dating again, cautiously opening her heart to new possibilities while balancing her demanding career. One evening, after a successful Mnemosyne cultural exchange event, Maya sat on her apartment balcony, gazing at the city skyline. The palm mark on her hand caught the soft glow of streetlights, a reminder of how far she'd come and how much was still ahead. She thought about Ruth and the women who had inspired her, their stories woven into hers, carrying her forward like a river of light. Maya understood now that New Horizons weren't just about expanding a company or crossing physical borders, they were about growth in heart, mind, and spirit. They were about embracing change and uncertainty with courage and curiosity. And with Mnemosyne as her vessel, she was ready to navigate the vast, uncharted waters of creativity and connection that lay before her. As the night deepened, Maya whispered a promise to herself and to the countless voices she carried. We will keep creating, keep healing, keep breaking boundaries. Together, we will shape a future where every story matters. Maya stood at a crossroads, both literally and figuratively. The company's rapid expansion had brought unprecedented opportunities, but also tough decisions that felt like turning points. She found herself weighing what Mnemosyne could become against what it should remain. The pressures came from all sides: investors eager to push for aggressive monetization, partners proposing deals that risked compromising the platform's mission, and the growing demands of a global user base hungry for new features and greater reach. On a crisp spring morning, Maya walked through a quiet park near her office, the cherry blossoms beginning to bloom. She needed clarity. The palm mark on her wrist, a faint but constant reminder of the legacy she carried, seemed to pulse with a quiet energy. She thought back to Ruth's letters, the wisdom about creativity's winding path, and the courage to face the unknown. At Mnemosyne's headquarters, the tension was palpable. The board meeting that day was scheduled to discuss a major pivot, introducing premium subscription tiers that promised exclusive content, faster access, and personalized coaching. While this would boost revenue, it risked alienating users who relied on the free version. Maya prepared to speak her truth. When the moment came, she laid out her vision clearly and passionately. Mnemosyne was built to be a sanctuary, a place where everyone's story is valued and accessible, she said. Introducing barriers goes against the very essence of why we exist. Some board members listened with understanding, others with skepticism. The debate was intense, reflecting the larger struggle between mission and market realities. Maya's closest allies reminded her that compromise might be necessary to sustain the platform long-term. After the meeting, Maya retreated to her office, her mind racing. She knew she couldn't navigate this alone. She reached out to Dom, whose calm pragmatism grounded her. Together, they explored alternative models, sponsorships, grants, tiered access with scholarships, community-supported funding, that might preserve accessibility while ensuring financial viability. Meanwhile, Maya turned to the Mnemosyne community for insight. She hosted virtual forums and Q&A sessions, asking users directly what they valued most and what changes they could accept. The responses were heartfelt and varied, a tapestry of hopes and concerns. Users expressed fears of losing the inclusive space that had helped them heal and grow, but also hopes for new resources and opportunities. This feedback deepened Maya's conviction that any change must honor the community's voice above all. One evening, as Maya reviewed notes from the forums, she received a message from a longtime user named Javier. Javier shared his story of battling addiction and finding strength through Mnemosyne's creative exercises. He wrote, "Please don't let this become another place where people are left behind because they can't pay. For many of us, this is more than an app, it's a lifeline." Javier's words weighed heavily on Maya's heart. She realized that the crossroads was not just a business decision but a moral one. It was about choosing who Mnemosyne would serve and how it would protect its soul. As the debate continued, Maya also faced personal crossroads. The stress of leadership took a toll on her health and relationships. She struggled to balance her drive with self-care, remembering Ruth's advice that creativity must be nurtured, not forced. One weekend, Maya took a retreat to a lakeside cabin with close friends, seeking respite and perspective. Away from screens and schedules, she journaled, meditated, and reflected on her journey. She realized that leadership meant embracing uncertainty, asking hard questions, and being willing to change course when necessary. But it also meant staying true to core values that defined who she was and what Mnemosyne stood for. Returning refreshed, Maya convened a strategic retreat with her leadership team, inviting open dialogue and brainstorming. Together, they crafted a vision that balanced innovation with inclusivity, creativity with sustainability. They decided to implement a freemium model with robust free features, coupled with optional paid services subsidized by a newly formed Mnemosyne Foundation to support users who couldn't afford premium access. This approach aligned with Maya's belief that technology should empower, not exclude. The plan was ambitious and required transparency, trust building, and ongoing community engagement. Maya drafted a message to Mnemosyne's users explaining the upcoming changes, emphasizing the company's commitment to accessibility and inviting feedback. The response was overwhelmingly supportive, with many users pledging to help spread the word and participate in pilot programs. As the new model launched, Maya monitored its impact closely. Early results showed increased revenue without significant loss of free users, validating the team's approach. But more importantly, the community felt heard and valued. In quiet moments, Maya reflected on the crossroads she had faced. How uncertainty and pressure had sharpened her vision and deepened her leadership. She thought about Ruth's palm mark, symbolizing creative genius born from challenge and love, and understood that the true path forward was not always clear or easy, but was always guided by purpose. The chapter closed with Maya standing on the same park path where she had sought clarity weeks before. The cherry blossoms had burst into full bloom, vibrant and alive. She smiled, feeling rooted and ready for whatever came next, knowing that at every crossroads, the choice to lead with heart would light the way. Maya never expected that her past would come echoing back with such force just as Mnemosyne was finding its footing in the world. One ordinary afternoon, a letter arrived at her office, handwritten on delicate cream paper, bearing no return address but sealed with a familiar symbol, a palm mark, intricate and distinct. Her heart skipped a beat as she carefully broke the seal and unfolded the note inside. It was from an elderly woman named Eleanor, claiming to have known Ruth in her youth and holding secrets about the origins of the palm mark that had become Maya's guiding emblem. The letter was cryptic yet compelling, speaking of a hidden legacy, of creative geniuses throughout history who bore the mark and had changed the world in ways unseen. Intrigued and unsettled, Maya decided to meet Eleanor, sensing that uncovering this connection could deepen her understanding of herself and Mnemosyne's mission. The meeting was arranged at a quiet cafe nestled in a historic part of the city. Eleanor arrived, a petite woman with bright eyes and a gentle smile, carrying an old leather satchel. Over tea, Eleanor began to recount stories of Ruth's early life, her fierce creativity, the struggles she endured, and a secret society known as the Keepers of the Palm, dedicated to protecting and nurturing those marked with extraordinary creative gifts. Maya listened, fascinated and skeptical by turns. Eleanor showed her a collection of faded photographs and letters, each bearing the palm mark, linking generations of artists, scientists, and visionaries from different eras. The stories resonated deeply with Maya, who felt a surge of belonging and responsibility. Eleanor explained that the palm mark was more than a physical trait, it was a symbol of a lineage bound by a shared destiny to push the boundaries of human creativity for the greater good. This revelation challenged Maya's view of her journey as a solitary path. She realized she was part of a continuum, connected to a rich tapestry of individuals who had faced their own trials and triumphs. But with this knowledge came a warning: the creative genius the mark bestowed was powerful but vulnerable to exploitation and darkness if disconnected from compassion and integrity. Maya felt the weight of this responsibility, understanding that Mnemosyne was not just a platform but a vessel carrying this legacy forward. She asked Eleanor how Ruth had navigated these challenges. Eleanor smiled wistfully, recalling Ruth's fierce spirit tempered by moments of doubt and solitude. She believed in the power of stories to heal and connect, to remind us that creativity without heart was empty, Eleanor said softly. As their meeting ended, Eleanor pressed a small, worn journal into Maya's hands. It was Ruth's personal diary, filled with sketches, reflections, and dreams. Maya clutched it reverently, feeling a profound connection to the woman who had unknowingly shaped her destiny. Back at her apartment, Maya pored over the journal late into the night. Ruth's words were raw and honest, revealing a woman who grappled with fear, hope, and the fierce desire to create something lasting. Maya saw parallels to her own life, the doubts, the breakthroughs, the moments of vulnerability. Inspired by Ruth's courage, Maya decided to share this discovery with her team and the Mnemosyne community. She believed that opening this chapter of the past could ignite a deeper sense of purpose and connection. The announcement was met with enthusiasm and curiosity. Users began to explore their own connections to creativity and legacy, sparking conversations about heritage, identity, and the responsibilities of creative power. Maya also initiated a project to digitize and preserve Ruth's journal, making it accessible as a source of inspiration and wisdom within the platform. This act of sharing transformed Mnemosyne once again, bridging past and present, individual and collective. Yet, the echoes of the past also brought new challenges. Some users questioned the idea of a chosen, creative lineage, fearing exclusion or elitism. Maya and her team worked to clarify that the palm mark was a symbol of potential within all of us, a call to nurture creativity with compassion and purpose, not a badge of superiority. The dialogue was difficult but necessary, fostering greater understanding and inclusivity. Meanwhile, Maya found herself reflecting deeply on what it meant to carry the palm mark in a world filled with uncertainty and rapid change. She realized that true creative genius required humility, resilience, and a commitment to serving others. The chapter closed with Maya standing before a mural painted by Mnemosyne users, an intricate hand marked with a palm-shaped constellation of stars, representing the interconnectedness of past, present, and future. She touched the image gently, whispering a promise to honor the legacy and keep pushing forward, knowing that every story, every creative spark, was a vital thread in the human tapestry. The turning point arrived quietly but unmistakably. For months, Maya had been navigating the complexities of growth, legacy, and leadership, but now something shifted deep within her, a clarity born from struggle and reflection that would define Mnemosyne's next chapter. It began with a series of user stories that flooded the platform, tales of resilience, innovation, and unexpected triumphs. One story in particular caught Maya's attention, a young woman named Lila, living in a small town struggling with economic decline, who had used Mnemosyne's creative tools to start a community art project that brought hope and connection to her neighbors. Lila's story was raw and hopeful, a testament to the transformative power of creativity when paired with determination and heart. Inspired, Maya shared Lila's journey in a company-wide meeting, reminding everyone why Mnemosyne existed, not just as technology, but as a movement for change. Around the same time, Mnemosyne's analytics revealed a surprising trend. Engagement soared not during the flashy new features or celebrity partnerships but during moments when users connected deeply with personal stories and communal creativity. This insight confirmed what Maya had long believed: that authenticity and shared humanity were the true engines of innovation. With renewed purpose, Maya led Mnemosyne to refocus on its core mission. The team revamped the platform's design to highlight user stories and peer collaboration, reducing distractions and fostering intimacy. They launched new initiatives like Story Circles, small virtual groups where users could share and support each other's creative journeys in real time. These shifts were met with enthusiasm and brought a sense of belonging that revitalized the community. But the turning point was not only external. Maya herself underwent a profound internal transformation. The pressures and decisions that had once felt like burdens now became opportunities for growth. She embraced vulnerability as a strength, openly sharing her own challenges and lessons with the team and community. This openness built trust and encouraged others to do the same, creating a culture of empathy and resilience. One pivotal moment came during a live Q&A session when a user asked Maya how she handled doubt and fear. Maya responded honestly, revealing the nights spent wrestling with uncertainty and the moments when she considered giving up. She spoke about the power of connection, how reaching out, listening, and leaning on others had helped her find strength. The response was overwhelming, with thousands expressing gratitude for her authenticity. This moment crystallized a truth Maya had discovered: leadership was not about having all the answers but about guiding with heart and humility. As Mnemosyne continued to evolve, Maya also deepened her commitment to ethical technology. She established an advisory board composed of mental health experts, ethicists, and community representatives to ensure that innovation served users' well-being above all else. This step reinforced Mnemosyne's reputation as a platform that valued people over profit. Meanwhile, Maya's relationship with Dom blossomed into a partnership built on mutual respect and shared vision. Their collaboration brought balance to her life, reminding her that even the most driven individuals needed connection and support. Together, they dreamed of new projects that would further bridge creativity and healing. The chapter's climax came during Mnemosyne's 5th anniversary celebration, held virtually but felt intimately by thousands around the globe. Maya delivered a heartfelt keynote, reflecting on the journey from fragile startup to vibrant community. She acknowledged the struggles, the losses, and the lessons, but most of all, she celebrated the stories that had shaped them all. The event featured performances, story showcases, and tributes to users who embodied the spirit of Mnemosyne. As the celebration ended, Maya looked out at the virtual crowd. Faces illuminated by their screens, each carrying their own story, and felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She understood that the turning point was not a single moment but a continuous process of choosing purpose over ease, connection over isolation, and hope over fear. The chapter closed with Maya's voice echoing through the digital space, "We are all creators, bound by the stories we tell and the love we share. This is our turning point, our chance to light the way for others, to build a future where every voice matters and every story shines." The breakthrough came not as a thunderclap but as a quiet shift, the kind that changes everything without fanfare. For Maya and Mnemosyne, it was the moment when years of dedication, struggle, and belief converged into a powerful new reality. It started with a prototype feature developed by their tech team, an AI-driven creative assistant designed to help users overcome blocks, spark ideas, and personalize their storytelling journey. The team had been cautious about introducing AI, wanting to ensure it amplified human creativity without overshadowing it. When Maya first saw the demo, she was struck by its potential. The assistant could suggest prompts, offer empathetic feedback, and adapt to the emotional tone of the user's writing. But what truly moved her was the test group's reaction. Users reported feeling supported, not judged, encouraged, not replaced. The AI became a companion, gently guiding them through moments of doubt and hesitation. With this breakthrough, Mnemosyne's engagement soared. New users flocked to the platform, drawn by the promise of personalized creative coaching. Long-time users felt rejuvenated, finding fresh ways to express themselves and connect with others. Maya watched as stories blossomed, raw, vivid, full of life and transformation. But the breakthrough wasn't just technical, it was personal. Maya herself had broken through a wall of self-doubt that had shadowed her leadership. She embraced imperfection, vulnerability, and the messy reality of creation. In doing so, she inspired her team to take risks and innovate boldly. The company culture shifted from cautious to courageous, fostering an environment where failure was seen as a stepping stone rather than a setback. This spirit fueled a wave of new projects, collaborative storytelling workshops, immersive virtual reality experiences, and partnerships with schools and nonprofits to bring creativity to underserved communities. Mnemosyne became a beacon for creative empowerment and mental well-being, recognized not only for its technology but for its heart. Yet, every breakthrough carried its own challenges. As Mnemosyne expanded, Maya faced increasing scrutiny from industry critics questioning the ethical implications of AI in creativity. Some accused the platform of commodifying art, others warned of dependency on technology. Maya responded with transparency and dialogue, engaging experts and users in conversations about responsible innovation. She emphasized that AI was a tool, a partner in creativity, never a replacement for human soul. This approach resonated deeply with the community and helped shape Mnemosyne's reputation as a thoughtful leader in ethical tech. Amidst this growth, Maya's personal life flourished too. Her relationship with Dom deepened into a partnership grounded in mutual respect, shared dreams, and the ability to challenge each other with love. They celebrated milestones together, balanced work and rest, and nurtured a shared vision for the future. The chapter's emotional climax arrived when Mnemosyne hosted its first global virtual festival, an event showcasing user stories, live performances, and panel discussions with creative geniuses from around the world, including a surprise guest appearance by a visionary artist who had once been a Mnemosyne user. The festival was a testament to how far the platform had come and how many lives it had touched. Maya stood on the virtual stage, overwhelmed with gratitude and hope. She knew this breakthrough was more than a moment, it was a movement, a collective awakening to the power of creativity and connection. The chapter closed with Maya's reflection: breakthroughs happen when courage meets compassion, when technology serves humanity, and when we dare to believe that every story has the power to change the world. Success, as Maya had learned, was a double-edged sword, carrying with it a hidden price that few saw until it was too late. The rise of Mnemosyne brought acclaim, growth, and the fulfillment of a dream, but it also exposed Maya to pressures and sacrifices that tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Late nights blurred into early mornings, meetings piled up, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavier on her shoulders. The palm mark on her wrist, once a symbol of creative potential and connection, now felt like a brand of expectation, reminding her daily of the legacy she was supposed to uphold. As Mnemosyne grew into a global phenomenon, the demands escalated. Investors pushed for faster returns, media spotlight intensified, and the relentless pace left little room for rest or reflection. Maya's relationships frayed. She found herself drifting from close friends and even Dom, despite his unwavering support. The creative spark that had fueled her passion flickered under the strain of constant decisions, compromises, and the fear of failure. One night, after a particularly grueling board meeting, Maya sat alone in her office, the city skyline glowing beyond the window. The silence was deafening. Doubts flooded in. Had she lost herself in the pursuit of success? Was the vision she once held slipping through her fingers? The weight of expectation became suffocating. In the weeks that followed, Maya grappled with burnout, sleepless nights, and a creeping sense of isolation. The palm mark seemed to mock her, a reminder of genius that felt distant and unattainable in moments of exhaustion. Yet, it was also in these dark hours that Maya discovered a vital truth: genius was not about perfection or ceaseless achievement but about resilience, honesty, and self-compassion. She began to open up to her team and loved ones about her struggles, breaking down the facade of invincibility she had carried. This vulnerability sparked new conversations about mental health and balance within Mnemosyne, leading to company-wide initiatives promoting wellness, mindfulness, and supportive leadership. Maya realized that the price of genius should not be paid in loneliness or self-neglect. As she embraced this more humane approach, the platform and its community responded in kind. Stories of struggle and healing became central to Mnemosyne's narrative, fostering deeper empathy and connection among users. Maya also reconnected with her roots, revisiting Ruth's diary and Eleanor's stories, finding guidance in the wisdom that true creativity required tending the soul as much as the mind. The chapter's emotional turning point came when Maya invited Ruth's closest friends and mentors to a roundtable discussion, sharing her journey candidly and seeking their counsel. Their support and insights reminded Maya that genius was a shared journey, built on collaboration, care, and the courage to face imperfections. Together, they envisioned a future where Mnemosyne would be a sanctuary not just for creative expression but for holistic well-being. The chapter closed with Maya standing by a window, palm mark glowing softly in the evening light, reflecting on the delicate balance of brilliance and humanity. She whispered a vow to herself and to all those who carried the mark. To honor the price of genius by choosing compassion over pressure, connection over isolation, and love over fear, knowing that this was the true path to lasting impact and fulfillment. The dawn of a new beginning settled softly over Maya's world, a quiet yet profound shift that marked not just an end, but a fresh start full of promise and possibility. After the trials, the breakthroughs, and the price she had paid for genius, Maya stood ready to lead Mnemosyne, and herself, into an era defined by balance, purpose, and deeper connection. The changes she had implemented were bearing fruit. The platform thrived not only as a space for creativity but as a community rooted in empathy and support. Users were no longer just consumers or creators, they were co-creators of a shared story, woven together by the palm mark's legacy of ingenuity and heart. One morning, as sunlight streamed through her studio window, Maya reflected on how far she had come. From a young woman uncertain of her path to a leader who understood that true greatness was measured not by accolades but by the impact on others' lives. She recalled the moment she first learned about the palm mark's mysterious history and the promise it held. That promise was no longer a distant hope but a living reality, visible in the vibrant, diverse voices that filled Mnemosyne every day. Maya's relationship with Dom had blossomed into a partnership that anchored her, a source of strength and joy amid the challenges. Together, they envisioned new ways to expand Mnemosyne's reach, bringing creative empowerment to those often overlooked or unheard. They dreamed of collaborations with educators, artists, and mental health advocates to build programs that nurtured creativity as a vital part of well-being. The platform's newest initiative, Palm Legacy, invited users to explore their own stories of resilience and creativity, connecting past and present in a living archive of human potential. Maya herself contributed regularly, sharing reflections, lessons, and hopes, further deepening the sense of trust and intimacy within the community. The chapter's central moment came during Mnemosyne's virtual gala, a celebration of the platform's growth and the collective spirit that fueled it. Thousands logged in from around the world, their faces glowing with excitement and connection. Maya delivered a keynote that was both heartfelt and inspiring, reminding everyone that every story mattered and that the palm mark was a symbol not just of genius, but of courage, compassion, and the power to create change. The event showcased collaborations between users of all ages and backgrounds, highlighting how Mnemosyne had become a bridge between generations, cultures, and dreams. As the gala ended, Maya received a message from Eleanor, now frail but radiant with pride. Eleanor thanked Maya for honoring Ruth's legacy and carrying the palm mark forward with grace and strength. She spoke of hope for the future and the belief that the mark would continue to inspire generations to come. Maya felt a swell of gratitude and resolve. The story that began with a curious mark on a palm had grown into a movement, one that celebrated human creativity in all its complexity and beauty. The chapter closed with Maya standing beneath a sprawling oak tree, palm mark visible as she raised her hand to the sky. The leaves whispered in the breeze, carrying the stories of those who had come before and those yet to be born. With a deep breath, Maya stepped forward, ready to write the next chapter, not just for Mnemosyne, but for herself, and for everyone who dared to dream and create. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. "The story goes on." Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?